We're looking at it more this year from a point of view of administration and ownership. Last year we spent a bit of time talking about if statements and formulas and how you build formulas. This is more about how to manage your system. So I've kind of broken it into three chunks. The admin side of things, and this is it top tips on things that I've found? No, it's more frustrations where I see people using it and think, oh, why don't you do that? And you've all done the same when you're watching someone use Excel. I think, just use the lookup, don't type. It's this sort of thing where I've seen people using Adaptive and you think, well, if you just use this, it's going to make your life much easier and much better. So there's some stuff here. Let's make this as interactive as it needs to be. If you want to talk about stuff, we'll talk about it. It's all on screenshots. I'm not going to try and do anything live because you watching me hack around and use menus is probably not that useful. So we'll just kind of run through. Did you know, if you like? So the most basic one is a user role. Because out of the box, you get view-only, contributor and power user, and that's what you pay for, and those are your licenses that Julian will sell you. There are people, there might be some in this room, don't be embarrassed, who think those are the options that you have for users. They're not. You can have any option you like. There's a big set of tick boxes over here that means you can define this and more. So standard user, yes, but standard user for consolidation, a standard user that doesn't have discovery, a standard user that doesn't have salary detail. It's a mix and match approach. You can do whatever you like. The thing to note as well is that the sort of misconception is that if you're an administrator, so Imran, you might be the administrator for your system, because you're the super user, that doesn't mean you have to be the administrator. You can give someone else the administration, and then you think, well, I can't give that person administration because I don't want them having access to salary detail, for example. By mixing and matching these, you can set up something that has an administrator who has all this access to do anything they like, but they don't have access to salary detail. But then you think, well, if they're an administrator, they can give themselves access to salary detail, but you can untick this. So, without labouring the point, it's a pure mix and match. If you want someone to administer your system, not have access to salary detail, and not have access to change the fact that they can see salary detail, that's possible. And therefore you can end up with 101 of these if you want to. Admin seems to be the default. People talk about administrators. I think what you need to have is a real administrator, which is probably one person, and probably your consultant, and then super users, power users, consumers, or whatever you want really.
So Chris, how does this fit in with your contracts on admins?
If you broadly speaking, if you're ticking things in these two boxes, you'll need an administrator license. Is that closely monitored by Adaptive? You decide, not that closely. You need to have administrators. If you've got 27 licenses and they've all got all these boxes ticked, one, you've got the wrong model, and two, Adaptive will spot it. But if you've got a third person that happens to have a bit of this and a bit of this, I don't think it's a big deal.
The way Adaptive works, you may have found out in an easy way, there is actually no hard stop on your licenses. You keep adding users. So it's easy to go to the top, it won't tell you, which is a flaw, but it's there. But they will also audit your system. It's random, and if they audit your system and they see that you've had 20 users when you only bought 4 and you've been running them for the last 15 months, do expect a retrospective bill, of course. But if you are marginally over, you've made a mistake, you've got old users on the system that have left, you've got to take them off, you're not going to get a bill for that. That's not the way they work. They may, on your renewal, say, come on, you need 10 licenses, not 5, don't you? They'll have that conversation with you. But we're still in the area where it's a little bit fuzzy. Now, when the new security model comes in, might they address that? Quite possible. But for now, you've got some leeway. Just don't step too far over the mark, otherwise, not unless you want a bill. So, we won't dob you in, but they do a random audit.
Sorry, where's the API restriction?
We'll have to log on to that. I haven't got a shot on that one. Yeah. No, it's not there. The API restriction is in general.
That's a role.
It's not a role. You're saying I don't think it's a role.
Come back to you, Chris. I noticed that. I can't remember.
It's not here, so it's not a user thing.
Support role.
You use single sign on and you remove the password from the user account. It's only if there's a password in the user account, because the API uses password. So if you're using single sign-on and you don't populate the password, you can't use the API. I think that's the answer.
So it's a bit more of a workaround than just ticking a box and saying they haven't got API. Similar subject, kind of the next point on is user groups. Use groups. Put people in groups. So for example here, we've set up in our demo system advisors, board members, executives, and you define a group. So you go to your admin screen, and we can define a group here, and you can define it not just by users, but by the levels they've got as well. So we can set up a group here, Ian, Julian and Steve. They've only got access to these two companies. We give the user group name, and then we can then use that to control our version access. So it's over and above users. You know, kind of a side point really is to manage your versions well. Another thing we don't always see being done very well is, yes, you organise versions into folders, and sometimes people lock them, that's good, but you've got all this ability here to have even live versions that are available to certain roles, administrators, users, and editable sheets. But if you do it by group, so this one here, for example, is a 3-year strat plan with the restructure. Even administrators, that's hidden. Now, hidden means it won't even appear in the list. So it's not that the data's hidden, the version's hidden. So no one can go up to their versions and say, oh, there's a restructure coming. It's not there. But there's a group called executives that have full access to that, for example. What you need to remember is that this is like a pecking order, if you like. If you're in any one of these groups, then it will override the other one. So what does that mean? If users is hidden, administrators is hidden, but if editable sheet access was available, then if you're in that group, you'll have access to it. And editable sheet access basically is anybody. Any standard user has that. So just because you've got here groups, this group full access, if you happen to be in that group, you'll get access to it. So you need to be careful. It's a pecking order is the best thing to describe it. You've got to be careful. If you're in any one of those groups, it will supersede the fact that you're not in one of the other groups.
If you want some help putting together your user role strategy or group strategy, it doesn't take us long to put together. We're very happy to help. Just on the previous slide, you reminded me of something which I meant to bring up earlier, Chris. You had executives and
board members.
Board members. And you had advisors.
Yeah.
An external user. You can give an external user access to your system. They don't have to have an email address that's associated with your domain name or anything like that. So I was chatting to Imran earlier on. Imran, perhaps you want to talk about this in a minute, does a lot of funding runs, Lendinvest, includes the name. And they give access for a particular version to private equity.
So yeah, so anyone who, we're a startup, so we need funding constantly.
So they give access to that version, which I think it said had a couple of advantages. Firstly, if you spot an error in your model, you can correct it without them seeing it, which is something you can't do once an Excel spreadsheet's left the building. And then the other problem, once an Excel spreadsheet's left the building, it's out there. You've got no control over it, it's there for a very long time. Whereas version access, switch it off. The moment that funding run's done, turn it off, they can't get access, you keep control over the forecast. Never mind the whole version thing with different forecasts for each week during the funding round, and keeping control of everyone being on the same version. So just remember you can give external access as well.
And it doesn't have to be read-only. If you've got the right model that's driver-based, top-down, strat-type model, you can give that to your PE and say, play, change these 3 numbers, see what happens.
So we did that. We've got an assumptions page, and some of them go, we want to stress it and see what happens if everything you say you're going to do gets cut in half. Will you still survive? And so we give them that access to go and change the assumptions. Excellent. It's not all of them, some of them.
Yeah.
And they do that, and they can make their own conclusions. But it's good where we go out to probably 10 different people to raise money. Only 2 will invest. The other 8 previously would have a copy of the Excel model forever.
Yeah.
You can't get it back off them. But as soon as they say, not for us, thank you very much, take them off and that's it. Don't all that.
And I know one of the common themes amongst all of our customers is growth funding. It's probably the most common topic, I would have thought.
So a lot of that's about process, as Steve said, but we can help you with it. But think about versions, think about users, think about groups, think about managing your model, because that's what Adaptive gives you over and above Excel. If you're not going to manage that and you're just going to have free-for-all access, anyone can do anything and nothing's locked, for that part of the argument, you might as well stick to Excel because it's going to be Wild West. What you want to do is lock it down, control it, manage it. Adaptive stats say that the average customer has 150 versions. Now you organise them into folders, you've got 150. But that's because people are creating what if all the time. What if this, what if that, rolling forecasts, etc. There's nothing wrong with having 150. It doesn't really impact performance as long as you're using this, lock the version, calculate the formula values. But even then, I would encourage that you manage it a bit. If you're doing a 12-month rolling forecast, why do you need to keep every one that you did last year? Maybe you keep the quarter ends or something and just manage it better, is the advice really. The other one on versions, and we did talk about this last year, is a constant currency version. So it's called a virtual version in Adaptive. So here, I've created a virtual version. My base version is the working budget because it's using the exchange rates from the actuals. And you can do the other way around. So you can have your base version being actuals using the budget exchange rates. And what that enables you to do quite obviously is this constant currency. But the fact that you don't have to do it manually, Adaptive has a thing called a virtual version. You click on the virtual version, you say I want the base data to come from here, I want the exchange rates to come from here, and then it enables you to do this, which is to say my variance actual to budget is this. But because this is another version, I can then put the budget at constant currency there, and there's my operational variance. And again, I think I've seen people doing this, but doing it manually, and copying the exchange rates from one to another, which is making you aware there's a tool there you can do it. We'll just jump back, so I don't need to get that. It is there. So if you create a new version, it's there. It's blue. If you want a virtual version, it's that icon there. Okay, versions and groups. The next one, which is a bit niche, but actually can be very useful, is, you know, if you enter at a quarter or an annual level, especially if you're doing reforecasts, we don't care about the month, we just plug in the full year number, let Adaptive break it back. Well, Adaptive's got this normal stuff here, proportionately, use the prior year evenly, and then you can go into any kind of maths and attacking formation that you like. But what some people don't realise is you can set up your own assumptions, and if you set them up as assumption accounts, there's this option here to say using breakback. So in this example, I've created an assumption account called seasonality. It's on my global assumptions, and that's just one high-level one. So I can do my seasonality profile on an assumption sheet. I can use that elsewhere in the model, obviously, for calculations. But also, if I tick that, when I then key in something at an annual level, I can use that assumption account there, seasonality profile, it's just going to break it back for me. So you can have seasonality profiles by business line, by revenue, by COGS, by overheads, as you wish. And then have your end users just say, full year number's this, break back. And as an aside, bear in mind that if you're doing a reforecast, so 3 plus 9, Adaptive will break back on the seasonality profile, but always understanding that the 3 months that have gone can't be changed. It's kind of obvious, but worth making the point. So if you're putting in 12,000 for the year, Adaptive would want to say that's 1,000 a month, but if 4 have already got in the first 3 months, excuse me, then it's going to break back the difference according to that profile. So it's not complicated, but just being aware that that's out there really. And the last one on the administration is think about something like this. We talked about user adoption earlier on. You get users to switch onto Adaptive, and the first thing they do to it is go to a modelling page or a sheet. They have no concept of what it is and what it's doing. Or an Adaptive homepage. It says, welcome to Adaptive, there's a conference in Vegas next week. You're not getting people switched onto it. Whereas, be aware that you can write these. You can, I can't. So you can. It's HTML. If you've got someone in your organisation who can write HTML, you can then upload them to here. So as a user then, and you can set this to the user's homepage as a default, so they log in, and it tells them, we're working on the 5-year plan. These are the guidelines, boom, boom, boom. There's some hot links here to training schedules, and it's just giving them that comfort factor when you're rolling it out to end users, that this is available to them. Now, you talked earlier on about rolling out to different levels of users. To me, your budget users would want a homepage like this, but then your execs might want discovery, or they might want your latest headlines, which you can publish as a HTML as well. Last month's results, boom, 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 boom. You can publish all those as homepages as well. You can set reports as people's homepage. So when your exec log in, straight away they see the live dashboard, the live report.
You can set the home page that people go to when they first log on by user.
By user, yeah.
By user.
They can change it.
They can, yeah, they tend not to, only if they've got access.
No, you can change your own home page.
You can change your own page. So this is literally just HTML. There's nothing fancy about this. We're doing Notepad, to be honest. And you can, obviously, therefore, change that at will. What you do is you load the HTML into, you upload it into reports. So in your reports section, you can actually upload external files, anything you like. Actually, you can upload it.
Yeah.
You can upload external files into reports, and then when you choose the announcements page, this is called an announcements page.
Yep.
You go and point that as the announcements page, and it will pop up like that when you go to the announcements.
That's another good point, actually. I haven't covered it, but as report, when you go to reports, you go to shared reports, you can create a matrix report, you can create this. There's one in there called upload files. You can have a folder within Adaptive that you upload Excel files, Word files to. The best example of that for us as consultants is to put your documentation there when we finish building the model. Your 25-page user guide you've got, it's great on your hard drive, put it on the shared drive, put it in Adaptive. So if anyone ever gets stuck, they can go to a folder called documentation. It's not live, you've uploaded the document at that point in time, but it's a good place to manage anything that's not an adaptive document in Adaptive.
And our consultants absolutely love doing documentation. So
if you look at any one of your instances, if you look at one of the instances, people in this room, there's probably some documentation there. So.
There's a file in it because I transferred the two, or five in it, so I transferred the two files that you need for Office Connect, one-time tools and another one. One there for the others two days.
Yeah, there is I'm thinking of Excel files, Word files, that kind of thing. Yeah, documentation type things, as opposed to exe files. Yeah, but I keep my Office Connect files in there for my demo system. Enough times I've done a demo and think, open up Office Connect. Where did I save that? Somewhere on my hard drive. If you just put them in the folder, the Office Connect works in Excel, but you can save it as an uploaded file. We did it for Sue earlier on. I'd saved it down into the demo system, so you can log into the demo system, download the Office Connect file, and then use it. So it enables you to keep control of that, if you like. There's nothing to do with what's up there. So on the app, that's a lot of stuff we've done on admin. The last two bits I think we touched on earlier on, just making people aware really. Not my area of expertise, but use single sign-on, restrict IP addresses, lock down who can and can't access your system from where.
Yeah. So support at adaptiveinsights.com. Are you all aware of the Knowledgebase? If you go to the help, you go through to what they call Knowledgebase. It's actually much better than it used to be.
Yeah.
We use it all the time. There is an article there on single sign-on and the steps that you need to go through for setting up single sign-on. I'm no techie, but I know it involves exchanging tokens between.
Yeah, and there's specific examples of with single sign-on to the companies you use and kind of things.
Yeah. But effectively, you engage with adaptive support. It's free of charge.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, yes.
And similarly, IP addresses. I haven't seen it, but I bet there's a knowledge-based page on.
There is.
Yeah.
Again, support at adaptiveinsights.com follows the notes on the knowledge base, and that's how you restrict your IP addresses.
So that's a good example. Those restricted IP addresses is not publicised. It's not documented anywhere. We didn't know about it. Someone asked, and we said, "I don't think so."
And my initial thought was, you can do that. It's a cloud.
It's the cloud, yeah.
And we actually logged the ticket with support format. Said, yeah, we'll tick this box, put the IP addresses in, and that's locked out.
So there is a knowledge-based article there, but unless you know to look for it, then you're not going to find it. Okay, so that's sort of the admin basics, if you like. We'll do a little bit on integration, and then we'll get into reporting, which is where most people see the interest, I think.